Good morning, YouTube. We're back with another video, and today we're gonna talk about my first rental. So I haven't made a video on my first house I bought in over a year. It's already been 2.5 years almost. In 1 month, it'll be 2.5 years since I bought this house. And this is my first house that I bought 3 days before I graduated college. This was with a 3% conventional loan. I'm gonna go ahead and plug my first video that I made a long time ago, just talking about the numbers between house hacking that house at the time. And I just want to give you guys an update, totally non-biased, of how it's been. Have I made money? Have I lost money? What has happened in 2 years? Because for most people, like when they buy a house, they don't really see in the future, and nobody can see the future. And so far, we've had a pretty good outcome. So for some kind of quick refreshers, I bought this thing for $248,000, which I'll show you guys in the computer in a second. We're gonna go over the current comps and all that sort of stuff. So since I bought the house, I initially lived in it and house hacked it. I rented out 4 bedrooms, and I also shared a bedroom with a guy. At that point, I had moved back to Austin after I bought my second house, and then he was gonna stay there and continue renting out the rooms per like a same house hack style, but without me there. Long story short, it did not work out. He was not capable of fully maintaining the house by himself, which is a shame. And I had to end up kick out everybody and rehab the house a little bit more just so it'd be rent ready for a good tenant. So I had, I'd say 2 months of vacancy, between 2 full months of vacancy. That's between kicking everybody out, doing renovations, and getting it leased up. I had month-to-month tenants, so thankfully I could give them 30-day notices. But after they were gone, it's a $2,400, $2,300 payment a month, which literally feels like getting stabbed in the back. Like, it is so painful to pay that much money to something and just have no outcome from it. And on top of that, I had to pay for repairs. If I remember correctly, my repairs were around $18,000, $19,000. I don't remember the exact receipts, but I was flipping houses at the time, and I used some profits from a house flip to pay for those repairs. And those repairs basically consisted of painting the entire house, fixing a lot of the cabinetry, putting new flooring in the bathroom, new tile flooring, resurfacing the bathtubs and the showers in both areas, and doing a bunch of minor stuff. When I first bought this house, I didn't know really anything about construction compared to what I do now. And I did a lot of it just kind of bootstrapping it myself, including a backsplash. And I'm gonna post photos and videos here of me doing the work. But I am not a GC. I didn't have experience doing contracting work as a kid, so I kind of just did it myself. And sure, some of the upgrades I did are good and do work, but I did not know what I was doing compared to what I would do now. If I was doing that same work now, it would be night and day difference in terms of quality and how nice things would have been done. So I also feel, and I know for sure, I overpaid for some of that contractor work because I had to hire a GC to hire subs to do the work. I don't recommend, if you're ever renovating a house, to hire a GC, but because I was working in Austin and managing this in Houston with no third-party intermediary really helping me out at the time in that area, I couldn't afford to have subs come in and out randomly and not give them real good direction. So I'm almost certain, if I knew my guys in Austin, if I had somehow had been able to coordinate things and be on site there, I'm sure I could have probably gotten all the work done for like $13,500 and saved $4,000 to $5,000, which it's just the cost of doing business. It is what it is, and that's what it takes. After that, the rent comps, I believe, are around $2,250 to $2,300. The mortgage payment's around $24 right now, but because I had like a month and a half of straight vacancy plus all those repairs, I was desperate. Not desperate, but I really, really, really wanted to get a guy to come in as fast as possible. So I listed it for $2,150, and I had it rented out, I think within like a week and a half. It was so quick. And that guy, I had like 4 applications. This guy was awesome. He's an older gentleman who I think he works for like some granting for college or university in that area, as well as he has, I believe, his niece's wife and their kid there. So he's an older guy, but very stable income, and he's been a wonderful tenant. So as of right now, I'm actually cash flowing negative in that house, about $150 a month. And I also continuously have repairs. I just recently replaced an evaporator for a AC, which cost $2,400. So really, in terms of a month by month cash flow sense, I was cash flowing positively when I was living there and house hacking it by the room. But now that I've moved out, I'm actually cash flowing negatively. So it kind of sucks, having to pay $200 out of pocket. It's not that much money, but it is money. But thankfully, because of my house hack in Austin, I actually am really only paying like, I think $300 total between that negative cash flow and the negative cash flow of my house hack. So it's not really like I'm eating much of a cost in general. Of course, when these repairs come up, that's when I get hit more, but it's just the cost of doing business. And we're gonna go into the computer to talk about how much it's gone up in value, or if it has gone up in value. All right, guys, we're trying something new. I should be recording right now through my webcam, and I wanted to pull up the comparables of my house, how it looks like since I bought it and how much I paid for it, kind of more of the details in terms of actual data online. So I have already kind of looked up houses for sale in my exact block that this house is in. This is in an HOA that's only $30 a month. The HOA just, I think, pretty much only covers this park. And I think it's other like small park here. It's honestly like, I barely even consider the HOA a big fee. I think there's also just like kind of some rules as to what I could build, but they're pretty monotonous, homogenous houses. So this red dot is actually my house, and let's actually go ahead and click on it, and we can see that I am in fact the owner, and we can see when I bought it and how much I bought it for. So I bought it, like I said, I think it was 2-3 days before I graduated, and my closing price was $248,000. It was listed at $255,000, and I did not get any concessions or any repairs that I know of, or like closing costs paid by the seller. Looking back, I should have 100% argued and negotiated much harder. Now, given that I've lowballed on so many listings and I've succeeded, I would have been brutal to these people. And you can kind of see in these photos, it's pretty beat up. This is like the type of house that I recommend any house hacker to get. The story was that there was, I think, like 9 children that lived in the house with a family. And the owners they rented it out to this family. And the owners had owned it for over a decade. Similar to me, they bought it, I think, right after they got out of college. So he was a Chinese guy, and he was just looking. He lived in California. He just was looking to sell and get out of it after the damages. And it smelled horrible in here, guys. Like you can see, these photos are not very appealing, and that's exactly what I was looking for because I wanted to get a good deal. And at the time, I believe this house would have sold for like $265, $270 if it was okay. So even then, like I for sure got it for not a big enough discount to what I should have gotten for if I knew what I was doing. But it was my first house I bought. I was so eager. I was so excited. And I was also like really, really pushy to both the lenders and the agent because I was an agent in Austin. I didn't have access to the MLS in Houston. Now they apparently are combined, which is great. But you can see here too, the flooring was also pretty messed up. This carpet is horrible. And like I said, it smelled so bad in here, guys. Like I cannot stress how gross and smelly it was. There was gum everywhere on the floor. There was sticker. It was sticky. It was just nasty. I don't know. And there's also like drawings everywhere in crayon. You can't really tell in some of these photos, but if you looked at the wall like really close, I had to paint the entire house by myself. And here's that floor. So here you can see we actually just resurfaced this, and we actually did replace this floor recently. So we'll go over those photos too. And you can see here too, there's also like kids drawings. And it's a big house, guys. Like this is 2,400 square feet. That's not small. Like this was one of the bigger houses in the neighborhood, which is also why I felt like I was getting a good deal at the time. So let's go into the other houses for sale. So again, it was built in 94, I believe, or 93. And I bought it for $248,000. I spent, I think, only $8-9 grand to start when I first moved in to make it nice enough to kind of just like rent out. But we can see here, let's actually go and just kind of hover. We have stuff that sold for $280,000. This is smaller than my house. And this is also, kind of outdated. This kitchen's actually, the flooring's quite nice, but this kitchen's pretty outdated with newer appliances. And we also have just that ugly carpet. So this looks like it may have been owned by a more elderly family that had kind of just been there for a while. Sold for $280,000. This is for $290,000. This is also smaller than my house. So all these are smaller. Again, this is also pretty outdated tile with, the kitchen just seems kind of bland. These appliances are really old, and the tile is atrocious. Also carpet and kind of outdated fixtures. These were builder grade homes, which means that they were, oh, that carpet's really bad. And that wall color. These were builder grade homes, which means that these were kind of just like cheap built houses that are meant to be sold and given in masses. So I'm sure they actually built most of this subdivision pretty quickly. Here's 309. So we're breaking $300,000. Same neighborhood, a little bit newer than my house, smaller square footage with an extra bedroom and an extra bathroom. So it must be a little bit more tighter house. I basically have about 5 bedrooms in my house, but there's no closet. So legally, I can't call it a fifth bedroom. I just put up a wall and called it a day. And I have like when I was renting out rooms, I would just I threw in a closet in there, but it's not legally a closet because it needs a door and hangers and stuff. We got nice stone. Obviously, this is a super ugly and outdated color. Like I kind of expected. That kitchen is pretty tight, but this still sold for 309, and it was for 330 listed. So let's actually go into the line display. We can see that 250. This is the lowest actually. 265, 250, and 250. We can see that that's 1980, which is I'm not even going to consider that. This is 2000. Well, we already looked at that. Sorry, 265. This is 1998. This is quite a bit smaller. It's half the size, so that's also not really applicable. And even then, if that's 265 at half the amount of square feet, it hasn't sold. But that is a pretty strong argument that we are worth more than 265. And here's also another 250. Also, it's 1784. Which is quite small, given that ours is 2440. Again, this is the exact same like style of house as mine. Tile. We don't have tile actually in ours, and only in the kitchen. So all painted. Kind of just like run of the mill, not super fancy. There's not many houses in this neighborhood that have sold that are like super duper fancy, like flip houses. I think there was one that sold a few months ago, but like 3-4 months ago, and that sold for like 320. So it shows that there's some, argument for high comps. And let's go to how my listing looked like when I was putting it for rent. So I was not in town, and I had a friend of mine, the one who could not handle being, what's it called? He couldn't handle managing himself, take photos for me, so they look horrible, and he only could come at night. Obviously, like I said, I had spent like $25,000 on renovating it and paying the vacancy. So I did not want to even pay another $200 for photos. This is the outside. This is a very outdated photo. The roof is actually new. In terms of the inside, there's 3 slats that are missing. I was just lazy to not get them replaced because the guy was like, oh, we should take out the whole thing. I was like, no, let's just leave the slats there and throw a carpet on. So I actually threw a carpet on. It's not in this photo, but there is a carpet there, so you can't even notice it, with this tile in the front. Again, this is all new white paint. It was so gross. Here, too, you can see that we actually have a new backsplash and also new cabinets. Our countertops are also actually new, which is funny to mention, but you can't really tell. They're not stone, though. They are laminate. And this is actually a new door. I put in 2 new windows over here and here, which you can't see. And there's a new fridge that I bought. And here was the office room. So like I kind of said, this was initially an open space. And this wall I put up to act as a room and cut it off because there was a weird like double door look where there was 2 doors next to each other. And I just saw, ooh, we put a wall right there. I think I paid $1,000 for that wall. It was a really good return on my money. Huge windows. These windows are all double pane, thankfully. I'm honestly going to need to replace them at some point because they are, probably original to the house, most likely 25 years old, 30 years old. And here you can see there's a lot of trash outside because I had not barely even like cleaned anything yet. I think I was waiting for a dumpster to come by and drop it off. I took these photos and got at least within a week and a half. I did leave these washer and dryers here. I did not even have doors for them. And then, windows fine, all painted, new flooring. This flooring I put in when I first bought the house. I also put in new doors in a lot of the areas because they were like holes. Here you can see that we had cleaners come by, I think already at that point, which is great. And then here was the bathroom. So our bathroom, as you can see, is definitely nicer than the other guys. Obviously, I didn't even update these lights because they're working. And to update these lights would have cost probably $25, but I didn't even see a reason because it's just slightly different colors. I could replace it to black any day, but they worked. Newer countertops as well as newer fixtures and new doors. These doors are all brand new. The faces, because it was just so expensive to replace the whole thing. Again, here, I guess we kind of highlighted a good amount of the master. bathroom. I think it looks great, at least in comparison to the other houses. With new fans in all these rooms. I don't have matching doorknobs because it's a big house. Like to make everything match perfect would have probably cost another $1,000. Like I'm gonna be straight up. These doorknobs are like $30, $25 each. Another fan would have been like $90. Obviously, paying for installation costs would have cost more money. So getting everything to match would have been quite expensive. Here is that shared restroom. So I'm sure we kind of saw. I'll kind of actually pull it up here. In that upstairs, you can see how ugly that old floor was. It was like this really weird um, what's the word? It was like this stone pink tile. I hated it, but that's how it was when I bought it. So we totally replaced it, and obviously we replaced the countertop with this. I think it was like $1 a foot. It was like the cheap Home Depot tile, ceramic tile, of course, but it's like what you'd see in any house. And my friend took horrible photos, but it's still leased. This is a better one. Yeah, here's a better one. So needed more lights, but overall, that's how it was. This is a small room. This is actually the smallest room. I remember this room I actually had a really hard time renting out in terms of for rent by the room because it was literally, I think, barely compliant to be called a bedroom. And because it had these like, shade doors or shutter doors, technically, like, I think it was a room for a baby or toddler because you could hear everything. Like, if you coughed, you could hear it from downstairs. So I felt bad for any guy that lived here. But yeah, so, simple math is if we bought the place for 248 and it's now worth, let's say, give or take 290 to 310 because we were in a bigger house. And maybe we could realistically at 310 would probably be more realistic if I were to spend another $10,000, like kind of just polishing it with those little slats in the floor, maybe matching some of those doorknobs and just doing some very slight cosmetic upgrades like those golden lights. I'm pretty certain I could break $300,000 in terms of this value. So really, I would say that the value of the property has increased from 248 roughly to around 290 to 310, assuming additional small repairs, which is incredible. That's a $60,000 gain. But remember, I spent probably $7,000 to $8,000 on upgrading it first when I first bought it, and another $25,000 on just kind of getting it up to par for renting out to a family. So really, my actual gain, I guess, that could be realized is $20,000. The only issue is that if I were to sell the house, I'll probably be paying $20,000 to commissions and closing costs. So really, like if I were to sell it, I would probably make no money. But I have that loan, which is 6.5%. It's already been 2 years. I've paid off, I think, like $6,000 of the loan, 3% of the loan, and I think I owe $236,000. So I really have 65-ish thousand dollars of equity in the house. Because of a loan paydown. So loan paydown is so powerful because every single month I pay down around $250, $300 more in the house. Let's actually show you just a street view of it, just because why not? Because I actually really like this neighborhood. I was in between a few other houses when I first bought this one, and I'm really happy I took this one because honestly, like it's not in a flood zone, which was a big deal for me, and it is just so easy to maintain. That's weird. I guess I can't fully see my street. Before you could. Yeah, basically that's my house. This one here. So I guess the neighbor wanted to block his view. That's new. That wasn't the case a few months ago. But basically that's my house right here. And this is not a bad area. Like it's cute. It's clean. The houses are very small lots, but that is what it is. And yeah, it's been a great journey. Like this is just another testament that you should look into buying a house sooner than later because it's only been helpful for me. So I hope you guys enjoyed the video. We've made money and I will see you guys in the next one. And don't forget to like, rate, comment, subscribe, talk to me, reach out to me. I love meeting with you guys and I'll see you guys in the next one. Peace.